Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for agreeing to participate in the PTSA AP in UCONN course information panel. Really appreciate your time tonight. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for coming out and also thank our partners in the PTSA for sponsoring this event. This is an annual event that we do, and it in the past has provided a lot of insightful information to families and students in thinking about the course selection process. And so let me talk a little bit about the evening. Like I said, this is a great opportunity for students to learn a little bit about our AP and our UCONN offerings. And in a minute, what I'm going to do is ask students to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the AP courses they've taken throughout their high school career. And then I'm going to ask our teachers to jump in and talk a little bit about the courses that they're teaching. After we do that, I'm going to provide a little bit of information about the programs, and then I'm going to address some questions to each of our panelists. One of the things that I've done is I've received a number of questions in advance tonight. So hopefully we'll be able to answer and address those questions. Hopefully we'll be able to give you the answers you're looking for. If not, we will definitely be able to put you in touch with the person who can provide you with that information. So before we get into introductions, let's talk a little bit about the AP and the UCONN programs here at the high school. We currently offer 22 different AP courses, and next year will be 12 different UCONN courses. Of the 12 UCONN courses, 4 of them are also what we call dual enrollment courses, meaning that they are AP/UCONN. By the time our students graduate, approximately 50% of them will have taken at least one AP course. In recent years, we've seen a real interest in our UCONN offerings as well. And that's evidenced by the fact that we've got 2 new UCONN offerings that we're going to be talking about tonight as well. In terms of performance on AP exams compared to other schools in our DIRG, we are known for offering or providing, having students take, or administering, I guess, the most tests in terms of all the other schools in our DIRG. And our scores are at or near the top of the rankings in all of those. So we have the most test takers and the most tests taken. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It's a nightmare for the AP coordinator. These are generally, these are rewarding courses that students really enjoy taking. They take advantage of them. And we're happy to share some of the information about these courses with you tonight. So let me introduce you to our panelists. Again, we're going to start with the students, and then we'll hear from our teachers. So students, Onward, I'm going to start with you because you're in my top corner here. If you can introduce yourself, tell us your grade level, which courses that you've taken throughout the course of your high school career, which ones you're currently enrolled in. And then after that, we'll jump in and have the teachers do that. Go ahead and unmute yourself so you guys can talk when you need to.
Awesome. So my name is Anirudh Krishnan. I'm a senior this year in high school. And the courses that I've taken, I'll just start in order. So like World History AP, Calculus AB AP. I think after that is AP Biology, AP Physics 1, then AP Language and Composition. And currently this year, I'm taking AP Economics, AP Literature and Composition, AP Calculus BC, and AP Chemistry. Oh, and also the UCONN course that I'm also taking is French 5 Honors this year.
Anna, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Vasconcelos, and I'm a senior this year. And so far, I've taken AP Bio, AP Psychology, AP Spanish Language, AP Calculus BC, AP Chemistry, and I've taken UCONN English and Spanish.
Fantastic.
Oh, and this year I'm taking UCONN English, UCONN Spanish, AP Calc BC, AP Chem, and AP Spanish.
Thank you. Beatrice?
Hi, I'm Beatrice Altop. I'm a senior. Last year, I took AP Language and Composition, AP Psychology, and AP Chemistry. And this year, I'm taking AP Literature and Composition, AP Biology, AP French, and AP Studio Art.
Thank you. Eloise.
Hi, I'm Eloise Murphy. I'm a junior at RHS, and I'm taking AP US History this year and AP Economics.
Jackson Fiore, please.
Jackson Fiore. I'm a sophomore. So the only AP course I've taken is AP History, World History Modern.
Thank you. Jackson?
Yeah, my name is Jackson Trotter, and last year I took AP US History and AP Physics 1. This year I'm taking AP Calc AB, UCONN English, AP Economics, AP Chemistry, and AP Government Politics.
McKenna.
Hi, my name is McKenna Davey. I'm a senior. Last year I took AP Calculus AB and AP Physics 1. And this year I'm taking AP Calculus BC, AP Statistics, AP Chemistry, UConn English, and dual enrollment AP/UConn Spanish.
Scully.
Hi, I'm Scott Robert Jr. I happen to also be a junior. And I took AP World History Modern last year, and this year I'm taking AP English Language and Composition, AP US History, and AP Music Theory.
All right. And Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Diana. I'm a senior, and last year I took AP US History, AP Language and Composition, and this year I'm taking AP Economics, which is also dual enrollment, AP Literature and Composition, and AP GovBall.
All right, excellent. So you can see we've got a panel that has some diverse experiences in terms of our students, people out there working hard. Let's hear from our teachers now. Christopher, Mr. Tate.
Okay, hi everybody. So for the science department, I'm the science department chair. We offer 5 AP courses, and one of those is dual enrollment, AP Environmental Science, which I teach, which I could talk about. We also offer now a UConn Geoscience class, which we're really excited about. It will be offered to 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. All the AP courses are offered to juniors and seniors. And so the AP Environmental Science, which I teach, is a year of starting with ecological principles of energy flow and biogeochemical cycles in the beginning to populations. And we go to the middle part of the year, we go to human interactions with the environment and the problems that come thereof. And we spend the rest of the year looking into different types of pollution and solutions to these issues. There you go.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ms. Kilborn?
Hi, I'm Emily Kilborn, and I currently teach UConn English 1011, which is a 4-credit English course offering concurrent enrollment at the University of Connecticut. I would love to teach EDLR 1162, which is a course that was newly approved to run this year but didn't have the enrollment. So we're pitching it again for next year. That would be an education course and not an English course, but it would run out of the English and health departments. Should it run, and it would satisfy senior wellness and English both at the AP level, and that's a course that would emphasize nonfiction reading and more so technical writing.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Giulio.
Hi, I'm Jen DiGiulio. I teach AP US History. I'm here to represent the Social Studies Department. We have many offerings in the AP. We have AP Psychology, Human Geo, Government and Politics, World History, and Economics, which also is the UConn dual enrollment.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Higgins.
Hi, I'm Kevin Higgins of the English Department. The English Department offers 2 AP courses. We offer an AP English Language and Composition course, which is available to juniors. And we offer AP English Literature and Composition, which is the senior course. That's the course that I teach. The difference between those 2 courses is pretty much in the titles. The AP English Language course focuses in depth on the English language. In terms of reading, the focus is primarily on nonfiction. The AP English Literature course focuses almost exclusively on fiction, and that includes poetry, drama, as well as novels. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ms. Peck?
Hi, everyone. I am Lori Peck, and I teach the University of Connecticut Human Development 1070 class. It's only through University of Connecticut, and it's through the Family and Consumer Science Department. It satisfies the senior level wellness class, and it is available for juniors and seniors to take. It is a class that has no other leading up class. So the students have never taken any class like it before. So it's very unique. It's human development. It's about how we grow, change, and develop from conception to death. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Power.
Hey everybody, I'm Allison Power. I'm the World Language Department Chair, so I'm representing the World Language Department. We have 5 UCONN courses that we offer and 2 APs. So we offer AP in French and Spanish, and our UCONN courses we have in French, Spanish, Mandarin, and we have 2 in Latin, one of those new courses this year. This year we have Latin 4, which is a study of the Roman Empire. Very, very cool. And this year we are excited to roll out the new Latin 3 course, which is all about mythology. And regardless of what course you take, we are looking to improve students' proficiency, reading, writing, listening, speaking across the board. Both of the courses would cover the 6 AP themes of personal and public identity, family and community, beauty and aesthetics, science and technology, contemporary life and global challenges. Obviously for the UCONN, there are specific requirements that they would like you to meet, which will earn you credit, and the AP would offer possible credit depending on your institution. So thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate that. So now we've got a few questions for you. We're going to start with the students. And Anna, I'm going to start with you. Tell us what you think it takes to be a successful student in these upper level courses.
I think it definitely takes choosing classes wisely and knowing how to balance your time mainly. Choosing, especially with AP levels and even UCONN levels too, choosing classes that really you're passionate about. For instance, I'm not a huge history buff, so I didn't really take any history classes for that. And I just found myself enjoying the classes much more if I challenged myself in subjects that I'm actually very interested in instead of just for the level of AP.
Great. I think balance is really important and something that is kind of a theme that we talk about a lot in terms of course selection, really making sure that you are taking a lot of this stuff into consideration. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Onward?
In addition, like Anna pretty much touched all the points. All I just wanted to add is also like a willingness to learn, usually like new courses, like especially if there's some sort of area of study or something, or like a course that you're very interested in, but you just don't maybe have any sort of background knowledge. Like again, like Anna mentioned, like she's not a history buff, or like basically, if there is something like you're very interested in, I would advise like definitely try it if you really feel like you can push yourself, and definitely go and do what it takes, kind of organize your schedule and all that. I think will also make your learning experience much more developed and much better as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Our next question is for the teachers on the panel. You've already kind of addressed the first part of the question, which is what does your AP or UCONN course focus on? But the second portion of the question is, what does a student really need to do in order to be successful in those classes? Chris, why don't we start with you?
So first thing is consistency. So our physics and chemistry have a lot of mathematical needs. So just if a student's struggling, make sure they reach out to the teacher. They're consistent with keeping up with the work, and they're putting their best efforts into labs. And basically make sure that they're getting into a class that they do feel passionate about, and that they follow through. Making study groups with other students is always a great way to kind of keep yourself engaged in the class.
Great. Kevin, can you talk a little bit about the differences between the 2 AP English classes?
Sure. So AP English Language and Composition, which is the junior course, in terms of the reading load, you're primarily going to read nonfiction works. That would include memoirs and things along those lines. The reading load is considerable in terms of what your instruction looks like. You know, it's a seminar style class. Usually class participation is weighted pretty heavily, sometimes as high as a third of your grade. So I think one thing to think about is, you know, does that environment feel right to you? In terms of assessments, there are in-class essays, take-home essays, and multiple choice practice tests. Now, at the senior level, a lot of that holds true. I think, again, the big difference between the two courses is really the nature of the reading. In senior AP English literature, you're really just reading fiction. But that includes, of course, not just novels. It also includes plays and includes poetry, which people may not have exposure to at all in the junior year. And then it kind of comes back senior year. So that's something to think about too, is, you know, how do you feel about poetry? But again, in terms of the instruction and the expectations in terms of participation and that willingness to engage in a seminar style class, I think that's pretty consistent in both the AP English courses.
Thank you. Any of our students who have taken either of the AP English classes, anybody want to weigh in? Sure, go ahead, Anirudh.
Actually, I've taken both. Currently, I have Mr. Higgins as my teacher for AP Literature and Composition, and I've taken AP Language and Composition last year with Miss Abe. And I would say, like, to be honest, like, pretty much is a learning experience. So, like, I never, like, if I look in hindsight, maybe if I look back in 9th grade or in 8th grade, I would never imagine myself taking a higher level English course because I was very, very STEM focused. And, you know, I just didn't like English at all. But, you know, over time in high school, like, I've realized like a diversified education is really, an interdisciplinary education is very important. And definitely, like, I really wanted to challenge myself. Like, I knew, like, I was kind of like, there's things in my writing I would love to work on. And definitely, like, especially in AP Literature and Composition, like, your teacher really works with you in the beginning of the year on your college essays, which I find is very important. And it really helps you, especially, like, kind of gauge maybe what your personal statement essay could be, what your supplemental essays could be, giving you the content sort of structure, that sort of help. That definitely, like, I really got from Mr. Higgins. So also, I really appreciate the experiences I got from these two courses, and yeah, I think it's a wonderful learning experience. And I would really kind of emphasize there's a lot of class participation. So you should be prepared with the books, and if you kind of like read the books, you should be good. And that's pretty much it.
Cool, thank you. Vanessa, I know you had raised your hand as well.
Yeah, I would say that the key difference, at least what I've noticed between AP Lang and AP Lit, is that AP Lit definitely has poetry, and that's sort of a huge focus in the class, and we read a lot of plays. I think the reading load was a little bit heavier during AP Lang, but again, I really enjoyed the seminar style of the class, which is definitely something you have to consider if you're more of a shy student or you don't really like participating all that much. But if you do, you're really going to get a lot out of it. So it's two classes that I've really enjoyed.
Thank you. Scott?
Being currently in AP Language, I can say that the content of the reading also can really depend on the teacher. Like, we've done a lot more fiction this year than I expected. Like, alone, we've already covered Invisible Man's Ceremony, Native Son, The Scarlet Letter. Like, there is still some fiction to take into account. Just
thanks, Beatrice.
Yeah, and that's another point, is that there's a lot of summer reading. I think I read 6 or 7 books for AP Language in the summer, and then I read, I think, 3 books, and then 3 or 4, and then a packet of poems for AP Literature. And then on top of that, there is pretty significant writing throughout the year for both courses. So that's another thing to take into account. If you're not a really if you're just not a very confident writer, it is definitely a way to improve your writing skills. But if you're not comfortable with like writing a lot of essays throughout the year, then it might be something to just take into consideration, that there is a lot of writing.
Thanks. A great point. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's talk to the students first about balance. How do you juggle your AP and or UConn course commitments with your extracurricular obligations? Anyone taking multiple courses? Anyone taking just one AP course? I don't know if we have anybody who's just taking one other than maybe Jackson. And can you talk about why you made the choices that you made? Let's start with McKenna first, please.
Yeah, so pretty much the last 2 years, my coursework has been really geared towards STEM. Last year, I took an elective as science research, and for the most part, that's where all of my APs have been. However, this year, I knew that coming out of an honors English class last year, I wanted to challenge myself a little bit more, and I wanted to be in a community that was like as passionate as I was, and I didn't find that last year. So I knew that my workload wasn't going to allow me to take AP Lit because I am not a huge reader, and I would much rather be in a writing-based course. So that was why I decided with UConn English, and I knew that that was sort of, from other students and talking with people who have graduated, I heard that it was definitely more writing-based, and it wasn't as much homework or summer work as AP Lit was. As for like staying on top of work during the school year, what I found with my sort of STEM and really structured APs is that you have to stay on top of your work day by day, because if you let it slip just like 1 or 2 nights, you'll find yourself really overwhelmed. And particularly with calculus and math APs, the homework all builds on each other. So for one chapter, you have, 7 assignments, but if you don't do anything, then you could find yourself with upwards of like 50 or 60 math problems to do in one night before the test. So I would definitely say enrolling and choosing the right courses for you at the beginning is important, but you definitely just have to take it day by day and make sure you're staying on top of things. Otherwise, you'll find yourself kind of snowballing and you'll get really overwhelmed.
Sure. Jackson Trotter.
Yeah, like McKenna was saying, good time management is incredibly important. I play football and I also play rugby in the spring, and that extra time crunch, having any extracurricular can make your schedule a lot tougher. So knowing how to manage your time, using whatever opportunity you can to get your work done is really, really important. And also, you have to take your extracurriculars into account when you're structuring your schedule. It's incredibly important to sort of weigh what you think your workload will be with the amount of time you'll have every night. Because like McKenna said, it's sort of you have to be on top of it every day, no matter what.
Sure. Beatrice?
Yeah, and just to emphasize that instead of doing like sports, I decided to do work. So I work like 3-ish hours a day sometimes, or like 3 to 5, depending on the day. And so I think one thing that you need to take into account, like I had a 16-page bio packet that was due this week, but I had a week to do it. So a lot of times they'll give you like a lot of work, but they'll give you like a long period to do it. And so really being like, okay, I have a week, but it's 16 pages. So I'm going to have to do like 2 pages a day, or I'm going to have to like space it out reasonably so that I'm not overwhelmed each day, but also that when it gets to the date, I'm not like freaking out that I still have 13 pages left, which has happened before. Like it happens every once in a while, but like just making sure that staying on top of it. Time management, it really is the way to go.
Enard?
I just wanted to add on to what B said. Like I also took AP Bio last year. I had Miss West, and basically like I would always remember her saying that like, hey, remember that you should be finishing this much of the packet by this day. Like especially last year, like she had these specific like deadlines, and these sort of like she kind of like helped us along the way to like make sure that we are prepared to kind of with the work that we're doing, because we have like labs, and sometimes you had to take home those labs and do them, and they sometimes take time, and then you might have a test coming up, so it's also very important to kind of prepare. But also I would just say in AP, like although the subject area is taught in more depth, I would say like teachers are always there and ready to help. Definitely you should always take advantage of the extra help sessions. Definitely try and email your teachers. because that can definitely help improve your AP experience instead of you just like working on it by yourself. Even if you have like a couple of friends in a class, I would say definitely work with them on like maybe homework or preparing for a test. Like I know personally many of my friends do that, and I've also worked with some of my friends, especially in economics. I also take the dual enrollment course, and basically some economics concepts I don't get, but my friend is able to help me, and when he asks questions on, let's say, for biology or on chemistry, I'm able to help him in return. So like in a way, I think that can really help make your experience much better. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. Scott?
I'd just like to take a moment to debunk the myth that taking AP courses will destroy your social life, because I really think that if you manage your time correctly, you can balance AP courses fine. And I think a strategy for me in managing my APs is that I take classes where I don't want to say were easy, but were manageable to fit into a schedule that I was comfortable with. Like having read a lot of books in English 2 honors last year made it easy for me to create a time slot every night where I can read for 45 minutes and not be too worried about feeling crammed. You know, taking AP World last year managed to prepare me for what to expect in AP US and stuff like that. And, you know, not all APs are built equally. You're going to be probably under a lot more stress in AP World than you are in AP Music Theory.
I imagine that's true if you have a little background in music theory.
Yes, it is.
Anybody else? All right, so 3 things that we've heard tonight that I want to reemphasize. We've heard balance, we've heard consistency, and now we've heard about time management. Mr. Giulio, talk to us a little bit about this year versus other years in terms of workloads and things like that.
I do think it's important that we look at the fact that we're not doing as much as we usually do in school. We just have less time together. The technology of it all steals some of those classroom moments. So I do have a concern moving forward that this year has been, aside all the other challenges, academically a little bit more achievable. People are really going out of their way to have lots of extra help and stuff. So that's something to think about. If you feel like super comfortable about this year, know that next year when we get back into the groove a little bit, school is going to go back to normal and there's going to be more expectations. And I'm not trying to say this as like a scary thing, but in the fact that the AP expectations are going to go back to normal. The College Board is not going to have, the digital option anymore. It's going to go back. So make sure you're not thinking or overestimating how many you can take on. Choose an AP or 2 that really interest you instead of, putting too much on your plate.
I think just to build off Mr. Giulio for a second, I honestly look forward to that, because I think that the stress of managing the work of AP under a normal circumstance is a very different kind of stress from managing stuff, while tackling online classes and, and juggling all that. So I don't know. I kind of look forward to that, honestly.
Me too, Scott. Me too.
I think we all look forward to a more sense of normalcy. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut anybody off.
It's okay. I will say that I have said this to many of my friends and my parents, that if this was a normal year without the block schedule or traditional learning, that I personally would not be able to handle my schedule. And I feel a little bit grateful in a sense where I have more free time than if we had the normal school day without double labs. Because I have a full schedule, I don't take an extra semester free or something like that. So I definitely will reemphasize what Mr. Giulio says by I would not be able to, I don't know really what I would have done. I would have had to switch levels or something or drop a class to be able to handle my schedule now.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Vanessa.
Something I really did to manage all my classes and plan ahead is throughout my years in high school, I sort of built up to taking all these harder level classes. I definitely don't recommend taking all college prep classes and then jumping into a bunch of APs the next year. I think it was mentioned before, like taking some of the honors classes, you learned what to expect in some of the APs. So that's something that's really helped me over the years manage everything a lot better.
Thank you. Beatrice?
And also that also can provide some peace of mind, because if you've been taking like honors classes and you're just feeling really confident in them, I don't think that you need to put AP up on such like a high pedestal. Like it might just be a step up. So it might be the next course for you. If you're like, I was really confident in my French skills, and so then I just took AP French. It just seemed like a step up. So like I think, yes, they are definitely hard courses, but there is a point when like you're taking all honors and you're like feeling like, oh, I can go a little harder. Just go a little, I don't know, maybe I'm pushing, but I had the mentality of like, it might just be the next one, like if you're feeling confident and you want to take a step up, don't be like terrified of taking that AP course, because it might just be the one for you.
I think, we talk a lot about making sure that we're finding appropriate challenges for our students, from year to year and from course to course. And for some students, that would be the appropriate challenge, right? Is moving from an honors to an AP course or a UCONN course. For other students, it might not be that they might not be ready for it yet, And like I said before at the beginning, I don't want everybody to think, oh, I have to load my schedule with AP or with UCONN. That's just it's not true. It's not a fact. It's not a necessary requirement to be accepted by good colleges and universities. Schools are really looking for, how are you doing? Are you challenging yourself appropriately? What are you doing to do that? And so for some students, it's going to be maintaining that steady diet of honors courses. And for other students, it might mean stepping up and taking a different challenge. Anna, I know you had raised your hand before.
So one thing that has really helped me manage my time and like going through classes is a paper planner. Honestly, I cannot recommend a paper planner enough, because like Google Classroom just doesn't do it. You need like 2 weeks ahead. I'm going to do like what Beatrice is saying, like I'll do 2 and 4 of a bio packet tonight, and then I'll do 6 and 7. And it really just like, I don't know, there's something about writing it and crossing it off for every class that's just super nice. So I think it's way better than just relying on Google Classroom, or like, I know a lot of people like Google Calendar, but I think a paper planner for especially junior and senior year has really helped me personally.
Great. Anna?
Pretty much, that's actually what I was only going to say that. Like Anna just pretty much said what I said. So.
Great. Okay. All right. My next question is going to be for Jackson Fiore. As the sophomore, this is your first one. Talk to us a little bit about the experience. How's it going? How you feeling about it? Did you make the right choice?
Right now it's going good. Talking about the summer work in the beginning of the year, it was a little weird because my freshman year, I didn't have a full year class of social studies or history. I took the foundations in modern history, and that even then I had it first semester. So it had been a good 5 months without, ever really touching upon a history class. But I think the summer work, after looking at it and completing it a few weeks before school, kind of, let me prepare for what the rest of the course was going to be. And even now, it's like, and I think we were told about this before, it's either, a chapter of notes every week or every other week, and, projects on that chapter, and then after that it would be a test on that chapter, and it's very like a week by week basis. But I think jumping from taking just a first level homework class elective as Foundations in Modern History to an AP course your second year was kind of hard, because I wasn't aware of what I wasn't aware of the big dramatic shift it was going to take.
Sure. Yes, Scott, thank you. Put it away. Ms. Power, you want to talk a little bit about the differences between level 5 and AP with the world languages?
Absolutely. So I have the pleasure of teaching Spanish 5 this year. And in that class, as I mentioned before, all of the level 5 or the UCONN or the AP classes, they're all going to focus on continuing your proficiency. You're going to be immersed in the language. You're going to be reading and writing and speaking and listening, all kinds of great things. But in 5, we do have a little bit more flexibility, and it's a little bit more organic. We can kind of develop things as we go, talk about things we want to concentrate on or go back to. It really is kind of a deep dive into culture. We do short stories, we do movies, that sort of thing, but we're not preparing for any particular coursework or exam. So that's where you're going to notice in the AP, along with all the wonderful proficiency work you're doing, you're also preparing for that exam, and you've got to learn the parts of the exam and practice for those parts of the exam. And as you said, in the dual enrollment, with the UCONN class, that class in particular for Spanish has a real focus on science and technology. So those students are really focusing on those 2 themes versus a broader, more general AP overview. But they're all great. Whatever you take is great. Language is great.
Anna?
So I actually take the dual enrollment that Professor Power was talking about, and I cannot recommend it enough. If you're going to take AP Spanish, just take the UCONN course as well. It's honestly not that much more work that it makes such a difference in your schedule, and it's super interesting. I really like it. It's like an English course, but Spanish. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just it doesn't feel like a typical learn your grammar, learn your vocab course. It's more about talking and just it's a lot of writing, but I really like it a lot.
Anna.
So yeah, just going on that sort of topic, I take the UCONN course for French. So Madame C is my teacher. So also B has had Madame in our junior year. But the UCONN course, again, I think B can, if she wants to, she can probably talk more about the AP course because I don't know much about it. But the AP course you would have to prepare for an AP exam, and you have a lot of work and all that. UCONN is kind of the same thing, but you don't have an exam to prepare for, Mrs. Power was mentioning. And another thing is in French, I know is very heavily discussion based, especially in the UCONN course. It's not as much writing. Even Madame has talked to us about that. It's not that much writing. We actually did for an assignment, we kind of recorded ourselves saying 4 lines of a French poem. We all got to pick a poem from this list that she had, and we had to just recite 4 lines, memorize it, just kind of just present it. So we also do a lot of discussion on politics. We did a couple of presentations on the general sort of environment of what's going on. So many people presented in French about COVID-19. I personally talked about the French election that's happening in 2022 with Macron and then the other sort of parties. And in addition, you kind of get more of that sort of cultural experience, because I think in the UCONN course, you kind of delve more into the culture and kind of understanding more about the specific sort of history of that country that you're kind of learning about. So yeah, I think the UCONN course has its own sort of perspective in comparison to the AP exam for the AP course, where there's a lot more stuff. But you also read a couple of books in the French UCONN course as well that you're assigned.
Right. Thank you. All right. So our next question is, do you have any words of advice for an underclassman who's thinking about taking either an AP or a UCONN course for the first time? I'm going to start with Eloise. Yeah.
I would say to really only take it if it's something that you're truly interested in and you actually want to learn more about, because if you put yourself through an AP or one of these dual enrollment courses and you really don't like what they're talking about, then it's just going to feel super painful and you're going to want to drop to a lower level. It's going to be awful. So I would do it in something that you actually are interested in.
Beatrice?
Stop listening to people who say easy AP and stop taking courses that are easy, because no AP is marketed as easy. That's not the point of them. So when people say AP Psych is easy, there's still a lot of coursework there. It might be an interesting topic that you might be fascinated in, and that might be why it makes it easy, because I liked taking the course, so I liked doing the classwork. But if you don't like psych, don't take AP Psych just because it's an easy course. Don't just grab the AP credit just to grab the AP credit. It's not worth it.
Vanessa?
I'd say don't be intimidated or like scared of the word AP or the types of students you think are going to be in the AP classes. It really doesn't matter what your intelligence level is. It really matters how hard you're willing to work and how interested you are in the course. So don't be scared off. And if you're interested in it, then why not take it? And you want to challenge yourself.
Great. McKenna?
So something that I found is that if you're really nervous about taking an AP, potentially gear towards the AP where there's no prior class. So something like AP Physics 1, most people take that without taking physics honors or CP physics. Similarly, Beatrice mentioned AP Psychology, and then you could even mention Mrs. Peck teaches, the UCONN Human Development. And so I feel like those classes, they'll definitely ease you into it because you aren't going to need to know any prior knowledge other than what's on the summer work. So it's almost an intro where you can have your hand held a little bit more than if you went in from AP Bio and it's been a year since you've seen any bio content, but you're still sort of required to know the honors or CP Bio material. So I definitely would give that as a suggestion to someone trying to take 1 or 2 APs from a no AP schedule previously.
Great, thanks. Scott?
I think it's important to keep in mind that over the years, AP exam scores have become less important to colleges. So if you're going to take an AP, take it for the class. Not done. Worry about the exam when or if you get to it.
Great. Jackson, go ahead.
I know I'm not really one to talk on this because I am the underclassman here, but something that one of my upperclassmen friends told me was that it's not a collect them all. So that's something that I'm keeping in mind when going into my junior year, because I'm planning to take more than 1 AP class, which is something I wasn't able to do this year. So yeah, I think someone said this before. I'm not just going to choose my AP classes, just to take them for the credit.
Great, thank you. All right, guys, I've got a few questions from the audience. So our first question is about UCONN courses. Can you talk a little bit about the grading, UCONN grade versus RHS grade? What grade goes on the RHS transcript? What grade is reported to UCONN? Are there others grades sent to colleges? What's the process there? Emily, do you want to jump in with that one?
Sure, yeah, because we're doing concurrent enrollment, you're being graded at RHS by quarter, just as you would if you were taking any other regular, excuse me, a high school English class. And just as your year 1 grade is, as we've been told, constantly updating and constantly calculating, so too is your UCONN grade. So, the grade of record, both for Richfield High School and for UCONN, is the final grade in the course. So what happens from our end is we tend to finalize grades prior to grades being finalized at UCONN. At RHS, our grades are due in June. At UCONN, the grades are due the first week of July. They run an auditing process at UCONN. We have to submit our grades through their student administration system. And once they're audited by UCONN, they are available for transfer. One thing that I would say about that transfer process is it benefits you if you're considering the class to make a determination early about the potential for your credits to be transferred. And the best way to do that is to just Google UCONN ECE, credit transfer database. And you can go through state by state on their map and their drop-down menus to identify the college or university that you're interested in. And it lets you know kind of what their boilerplate process is for accepting transfer credits from the University of Connecticut. So it's a good starting point in terms of seeing how that credit transfer will play out.
And then in terms of requesting transcripts, that's done directly through the ECE system, correct?
That's correct. You would contact, there is an automated system through UCONN, but yeah, effectively, you're working through the registrar's office to have those however many credits you might have accumulated from UConn to be transferred to whatever college or university you matriculate to.
Right. Thank you. So our next question was, is there a list of schools that accept UConn credit? But I think you kind of answered that by talking about the credit transfer. So that's important. For our students, how did you list, our seniors really, how did you list these courses on your applications? And how do you answer the question of, was the class taken at a college or university campus or with other college university students? Yeah, Andrew.
So I kind of applied, so there are kind of two systems. So, I mean, by RHS, you pretty much apply through the Common App. And if you're applying to the UC school, so that means like the California schools, like the state schools like UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC Davis, all that, pretty much they have a separate system where you cannot use the Common App. And again, like those schools do it differently. Like for Common App, basically, you just list the course as it exactly mentions on your transcript. So you don't change any wording or anything like that, as long as, like, if it says on your transcript, let's say ENG language AP, you just exactly write what it says. I mean, you can also just say English language AP, that's fine, but just it's just to be safer, just to write whatever it says. And you just, and there, if you're self-reporting grades, there are certain schools that require you to self-report your grades in addition to the guidance counselors like sending in your transcripts, where you would you just basically, they have a system where it says like, oh, add in your year 9 grades, add in your year 10 grades. And basically there you would just kind of like just say what is your final grade, because RHS only goes by the final grades and they don't go by semester grades, nor do they go by quarter grades that they send to colleges. They usually go by the final grade, and only in senior year it's a little different because some schools want your first quarter grades, some schools want your mid-year grades. That the guidance counselors will take care of normally.
Emily?
I just want to specify, because you'd asked the question about can they say they took the course at a college. The answer is no. You took the course at Ridgefield High School. So even though it is a college course, and very well one that you could take in a semester-based program, because you're also taking it for credit as your English 4 class, or whatever the commensurate experience might be for the other disciplines, you're unfortunately not able to say that you took it outside of your high school experience.
Thank you. So there's a question about what are all the AP courses taught at RHS and what year can they be taken in. I'm going to just encourage people to go to our program of studies. We're actually getting ready to launch a new course selection process website, which is going to link to programs of studies, have all kinds of great information about different departments and things like that. And so I'm going to encourage people to look for that coming in the near future. But you can check the program of studies because, like I said earlier, 22 different AP courses, 12 different UConn courses. It would take us quite a bit of time to run through that list. Which classes fit into college majors or careers? I think, again, I would really encourage students to sit down, have conversations with their counselor about that. There's a lot of resources available. We use Naviance quite a bit, and that would be able to help with kind of answer that question as well. But sit down, have a conversation with counselors, and that would be a great way to get some information about that. Another UConn question. For classes like economics and environmental science, classes that are both AP and UConn at RHS, why would somebody choose to take the AP exam, especially if they're receiving more credit through the UConn program? Mr. Tate, you want to answer that one?
We basically encourage all of our students to take the AP exam, but it's also a good baseline of your knowledge that you've acquired through the course. But generally, students all take the AP exam, and I have about half the students also take the UConn.
Yeah, I think we in our past practice has been that it's been a requirement to sit for the AP exam. That practice has changed over the last couple of years, and now students are strongly encouraged to take the AP exam. I think that people aren't as well versed in the UConn program in terms of what it involves and whatnot, and so I think we would probably have more students take the UConn option if they knew a little more about it. Although I say that, but at the same time, We were just told that we're one of the largest UConn programs in the state. And so, Emily, go ahead.
I was just going to say to that point, Scott, I think that one of the real selling points of our UConn programming is that you're getting a college level class without the threat of the test hanging over your head, which, especially in these current pandemic times, has been, I think, a blessing both for instructors and for students, because we can offer the kind of flexibility that AP teachers simply don't have the luxury of offering. And that can be true also when we're in a non-pandemic learning experience time. Sure. So that piece of not having the test, having that extra kind of flexibility, I can speak from the perspective of English class that it's really more of a project-based course. So UConn audits us in terms of our student performance. They're looking for a certain number of major projects to be yielded from the course. Lori, I don't know how that works for you, in terms of the student output versus, testing, in terms of the UConn flexibility piece.
Yeah, for my class, they require an end of the year assessment, a cumulative assessment, but it doesn't even have to be a test. It can be a project. And so that's what I usually do. We usually write a paper for the end of the year. And some students find that they do better on that than they would in a cumulative test. And they end up with 3 credits at the University of Connecticut. I don't have an AP option for my class. AP doesn't offer it. But 3 credits from University of Connecticut is a pretty good option.
Thank you. All right, we kind of touched on this already, but if anybody wants to just briefly summarize, how much more work is an AP or a UConn course versus an honors course? And is it the same for all AP and UConn courses versus honors courses? B?
Definitely depends per course. I'll just put that out there. But it's usually not necessarily harder work. It's just that you'll go more in depth and you'll go a little bit faster. So you might complete, I know some math courses, I don't take a AP math course, so maybe somebody else can touch on this more, but I know that you complete what some would complete in a semester, or what some would complete in a whole year, you complete in a semester, stuff like that. That's what alters the coursework, and what makes it more difficult is just that you go in more depth. But then again, if you like the topic, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think it's just interesting. I like bio, so I don't mind going super in depth into photosynthesis.
Mr. Giulio.
Well, for APUSH, we are actually 2 college courses. So it's kind of twice the amount of work you would be doing in an honors level. But I also think it's important to know that you do a lot of reading and learning on your own time. And then when you come into the class, you're applying that knowledge. So projects, we've heard that a lot, debates, it's you working with the material. So in a college prep honors class, you can expect to come in and have a teacher explain a concept to you, whereas I'm expecting you to come in already understanding that concept and then doing something with it.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, another UConn question. This is about separate registration. Is there a separate registration required for the UConn classes? Can you please explain the 30 pages of writing required in the UConn English class? Can you explain the idea behind the UConn Health and Education class? I think we had that conversation a little bit. Will it require 1 or 2 periods? Will it prepare for scientific writing at the same level as the UConn 1011 class?
Okay, so that was a lot of questions packed in a row. As far as the EDLR course goes, if it runs, it would run as the American Studies is set up. So it would be consecutive periods. We'd have to enroll 40 students in order to run the class. It would be entirely, the reading would be entirely nonfiction, and the writing would be more technical than it would be in the English 1011 class, but we also don't do much literary-based writing. We do almost zero literary-based writing in the English class as it stands. So, if you're interested in the EDLR, you might be somebody who's interested in social work or health or policy or education. Writing would be research, position papers, proposal writing, and formal correspondence. And then don't forget that there is a service learning requirement for that particular course. Scott, I can't remember what all the other questions were.
There was a question about the, can you please explain the 30 pages of writing
Okay,
required?
Yeah, the 30 pages of writing was a requirement at UConn, and it is no longer. Now we have a little bit more latitude because we do compositions that are not always written compositions. So we've done digital compositions and things like that. So UConn's moved away from 30 pages of writing, and they're saying 6 to 8 projects, or the digital equivalent of 30 pages of writing, in kind of recognition that we're, very much moving in a post-text world as far as composition is concerned.
Great, thank you. The next question is, will both AP economics exams happen in May, or will one happen in the fall? Nope, the AP exams only take place in May, even though the economics course is really 2 courses. We teach it as one full course. There's only one test date, and that test date is in May. So there will be 2 tests in May, but they're both going to be in the spring during that testing window. How much more do colleges look at AP versus honors courses? And again, advantage of AP versus honors. I think we've touched on the advantages in the past, but for a couple of students maybe want to weigh in terms of they're thinking about AP courses being looked at differently by schools. Vanessa, go ahead. Sorry.
So they definitely look at what's offered at your school. In terms of RHS, again, we offer 22 AP courses, I think it was. So for more competitive schools, they probably want to see that maybe you're challenging yourself a little bit and taking maybe 1 or 2 and are doing well in them. So that goes back to the idea of taking something that you're interested in and think you're going to be strong in. It again, like, grades aren't the entire thing going on with college admissions. They look a lot about community service and your essays, obviously, and extracurricular activities. But as an RHS student, they probably will want to see that you're taking some AP courses.
Great, thanks. I think, again, it comes down to some of the tenets we've talked about already tonight, right? Balance, time management, consistency, and being passionate about the subject. I think ultimately admissions counselors tell us that they want to see students who are challenging themselves. Challenging themselves doesn't necessarily mean taking AP or UConn courses. Challenging yourself could be really, like I said, taking a consistent stream of honors courses. It could be stepping up from a college prep level course to an honors course in certain areas. So I think, what's really important is making sure that we're finding that balance and that we are figuring out where that appropriate level of challenge is. Our next question is about AP versus UConn in terms of public universities accepting or preferring UConn credit over AP, and how about private colleges? I don't know that we necessarily have stats on that. I do know that the UConn courses seem to transfer at a higher rate than the AP courses do, but I don't have specific stats on that. Anirudh, I know you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I know, like, just from information, I believe, I think like 95% or more of all the colleges in the United States accept the UConn credits, or like the UConn offerings, like if you're trying to transfer them. Like, definitely it depends, because if you go onto each of the college sites, they have the AP credit transfer. They have like the specific scores you need, and that's the scores that if you kind of transfer them, you have a better shot of kind of getting those credits. But then again, there's like not that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're guaranteed to transfer out of the course, because first of all, the major thing is getting accepted into the school before you can transfer the courses. So that's one of the things. But then otherwise, UConn courses, you can still transfer them definitely to any school, but I don't think there's any issue with any of the UConn courses. I think it should be transferable.
McKenna, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I will say from what I've read, not only do the AP test scores matter, typically you need a 4 or 5 to get credit at most universities, but if you're doing something like a language or a science or a math, most universities, at least the public universities that I'm applying to, they're not going to accept any of your APs, and as a substitute, they're going to make you take a placement test. So I definitely, like, my biggest like words of wisdom is don't take the APs for the credit and to say you've taken the APs, because in a lot of situations that I've known, people get really upset when the school doesn't take their APs because they're trying to be a bio major and they won't take their AP bio. So it definitely depends on the major you want and the classes you're trying to take.
Sure. B?
Also, some classes they won't take the credit if you're like, for example, like the example that McKenna gave, if you're doing like a bio major and you want to give them your AP bio credit, they might not take it because you're like majoring in that. So they might take like credits that are kind of on the side that don't necessarily go into your major, but if it's a course that is essential to your major, they might still make you take the prerequisites for that major rather than taking your AP credits. So just to emphasize the point, it will still help you in the end because you're still gaining that knowledge, and that still will help you like when you're going into those harder courses in college, but don't take it for the credits because it might not transfer.
Great. Anna, I know you had your hand raised.
To add on to what everyone is saying about like AP credits and that kind of thing, is especially for the languages, from what I've seen, is that typically a 5 on the AP exam will just boost you to like a higher level of your language, like a higher level of Spanish or higher level of French. Whereas like taking a UCONN course, if you don't want to continue doing language, it can actually transfer and get you credit to like fulfill some sort of general education requirement for that foreign language. So that's where like it depends what you want to do and like whether you want to keep doing language or you want to just place out of language. And that's where like taking both a UCONN and an AP is beneficial, I think.
Great. Ms. Kilborn, I know you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's not quite as high as 95%, but the recent numbers that UCONN puts out is that about 87% of colleges and universities will accept the credit. And again, you know, you've got that amazing tool of the credit transfer database to check. And just to dovetail on Beatrice's piece, there are a number of colleges that are kind of notoriously reject at least the English credit because they have very specific and sometimes technical requirements for first year writing. And a good example of that is Bentley. They want to set you up to do, you know, pre-business professional writing. So they insist that you take their first year writing course as opposed to just a, you know, more universal writing course.
Ms. Peck? Yep.
And I'm just going to speak from the position of a mom who's put 3 kids through college. All 3 of them went to school with at least a semester of AP classes under their belts. They all got credit for 18 to 19 hours, each of them. The one that I will say, and this I get no credit for, it's not in my department or anything, they all benefited from taking AP Psych because every one of them majored in something outside of psychology, but every one of them had to take psychology for their major. They all got AP Psychology out of the way at high school and managed to go through college without having to take a psychology class with, you know, 150 to 300 people in the class and having to be a lab study. So I personally, I tell my students, take AP Psych, and that doesn't benefit me at all. And so I would say that you can benefit from taking AP classes when going to college. Yes, my kids did not go to Ivies.
Thank you. I think, you know, there's no one answer to this question. It really does require some research on the part of the student and the family, looking at each particular school to find out what their practices and policies are on accepting credits, whether they be AP or UCONN credits. You know, I would encourage you to do the research, work with your counselor to help with that. Please, you know, reach out. We've got a lot of resources available. We're more than happy to help. Our last question of the night is, if I know that I want to enter a STEM field as a career, would it still be valuable for me to take AP or UCONN courses in humanities fields? Jackson Trotter, you want to start?
I'm definitely a STEM guy. Generally, in the past, I haven't really actually enjoyed my English courses, but this year, my UConn English course is hands down my favorite. It grants you a new perspective, and the skills that you develop in a lot of, especially AP and UConn English, are incredibly valuable for your writing, because regardless of what field you go into, you're going to have to do some form of writing, whether it's a lab report, a business, or sort of a, I don't know, TPS report, whatever you want to call it. But it's definitely valuable to have a interdisciplinary education coming out of high school, and it's a valuable experience, and it has the potential to be incredibly fun. So
Great.
I would support it.
Thank you. B?
Yeah, as somebody who's taken double sciences since sophomore year, I'm definitely a STEM person. Like, I've loaded my schedule with STEM courses, specifically science, and I plan to go into the science field. But I cannot emphasize enough like how glad I am that I took like improv freshman year, which isn't an AP course, but like, just like a random course that I was like, oh, I'll just like try this out and see how it goes. And I'm so glad that I took the like AP Psych, which has nothing, it has nothing to do with probably what I'm going to go into, or like AP Art, which also doesn't have anything to do with what I'm going to go into, but just like expanding your options. And also, like, you might take a course and not think much of it, and then absolutely enjoy it and be like, oh, this might be what I want to do later on. So like, really expanding the courses that you take not only helps you just like integrate different perspectives into whatever occupation or whatever major you go into, but also just generally, you might find something that you never thought you'd like and then end up looking further into it just because you decided to take a course that interests you.
Cool. Anirudh?
Again, I have to just kind of add on to what Jackson and B said, just from my personal experience. Like, again, I've also taken many STEM courses. I've doubled up in, sciences last year with both taking AP Physics and AP Bio. But in addition, I would say like this year and last year, English was, again, my favorite subject because, like, again, it was just, I just love the seminar sort of feel, just taking those harder English courses. And even I would just say, in addition, I've also, like, I think humanities is very important. Like I really love history, so I took AP World History in 10th grade, and I still I took like AP Economics, and I think they just give you a sort of different perspective. Like I mentioned this before, like interdisciplinary learning, and I think that's just very important. So you don't just have that sort of one view of STEM. You also know that there's also another thing. If you don't try out new things, then you're never going to learn. That's what I would just say. If you're not going to try other things, then you're only going to be having a specific view on a certain area, and I don't think that might be most beneficial.
Great. Anna, I know you had your hand raised.
Yeah, so personally, I agree with what everyone said here, and I've never really felt like a strong writer all throughout high school, but then this year I decided to push myself and take UConn English, and it's like everything that Jackson was saying, honestly, is so important because it's like no other English class you've ever taken. It's like not very focused on like, ooh, who's the character of this book? What's the symbolism? It's more about writing as a whole and just learning how to be a good writer and like how to put your thoughts into words. So even as a STEMmy person, I think there's so much benefit in just pushing yourself in like specific writing courses.
Great. Eloise?
I think in general, like trying new things is really important. It doesn't even have to necessarily be APs, but like with your extracurriculars too, and like trying new clubs and stuff. And I think that like adds into how you should balance your schedule, because personally, like I want to try everything that I can this year and like be able to figure out what like I actually like.
Great. Thank you. B?
Yeah, also just for the record, I think that colleges really like to see that you've tried a lot of different avenues of interest and that you have a lot of different avenues of interest and that you're going to be like a great addition to just their college or university in general, because you will be contributing to many aspects of college life. So if that's something that you emphasize a lot, that would definitely help.
Awesome. Thank you. McKenna?
Yeah, just like wrapping up, I have a similar situation with Anna where I've taken a lot of STEM classes all throughout high school, and then I realized that my college essays is really important, and I'm gonna need to refine my writing skills because it's not just grades, and it's a lot of other things that helps get you into college. Mrs. Kilborn was a huge resource in my college admission process. She definitely helped me with a lot of essays, but I would say, like, you are most certainly going to benefit from a higher level English class, whether that's Lang or Lit or UConn. I definitely think regardless what field you're planning on going into, being able to write really well, even if that's just an email, like, you're going to get respect from people if you really have strong writing skills.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, guys, I really appreciate it. Before we close, a few housekeeping items. Currently, AP exams are $100 per exam. The fee was due December 1st and have been billed to student accounts. So if a student doesn't take a test and a test has been ordered for them, there is normally an unused exam fee. That fee this year has been waived by the College Board for the 2021 testing. School position, again, was mentioned earlier, is that we do expect students to take the exam. However, we don't require them to do that. However, any student who doesn't sit for the AP exam is subject to, or maybe asked to complete some kind of a culminating activity in that class instead. So I think UConn courses are weighing in somewhere around $125 a course right now. I think it's a little bit different based on the course itself. Lori?
Isn't it 120? It's per hour, isn't it?
It's per credit.
Per credit hour.
Right.
Right.
Per credit. So a 4-credit course is going to cost more than a 3-credit course, et cetera.
Right. Thanks, guys. And that fee is paid directly to UConn. We don't get any piece of that. So that gets billed directly to UConn itself, or directly from UConn itself. And I think the last point to mention tonight is that while most colleges don't give credit for both of the AP English exams or AP English classes, typically students will receive credit for one or the other, which I think is another reason why we've seen a bit of a growth in the AP English course for the senior year as well. So with that, I'm going to close the panel out. At this point in time, I'd like to say thank you again to all of our participants for taking time and for really sharing some great information. It's been a really great evening. I appreciate all of the time that you've given us. I'd like to thank our PTSA partners as well. They're fantastic and they do great work for us in the school. And if you are not a PTSA member and you're watching this, we encourage you to jump on board with them. They do a great job for us. And with that said, I kept people longer than I promised them. So I'm going to tell everybody to have a great night and thank you very much. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Pleasure.